So I'm here with underground hip hop legend, Mr. Hyde. How you doing today?
What's going on, man? How are you? I'm
Heavenly,
good.
thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it.
No
You're
problem.
from Queens, New York. You know, when I
Queens,
think,
New York. Yeah.
yeah, I think of like, the movie Coming to America. What was it like in Queens?
Yeah. Born and raised, man. Yeah, and that's a classic. That when I seen that movie in the theater at the Elmwood Movie Theater, which was very legendary in Queens, in Elmhurst. I was actually born in Elmhurst too. I was born in Elmhurst Hospital, the same hospital as Kool G Rap. About exactly 10 years after G Rap was born, I was born in the same hospital. I know that because we worked on a project together, and we got to talking about Queen stuff, and yeah. So I seen Coming to America in the Elmwood. I was a kid. My mom brought me, and I remember laughing my head off with that flick, man. As a kid, that was a great one.
Definitely, man. We just can't like gloss over that what you just said that you worked with Kool G Rap, man. Legendary hip hop artist. You've been in the game for a long time. What was it like working with him?
Yeah, it was dope, man. Me and my best friend Necro. Everybody knows Necro, so like we're best friends for a long time, and me and him, our number one influence growing up, like to pick up a pen was G Rap. Being from New York, and that New York hardcore, rugged gangster, multi syllables. He's not just a, you know, not just a legend. He's like a spitter. He's just a pioneer. So we were very influenced. He's like our number one influence when it comes to lyrics, and being able to work with him on the Godfathers project. Necro had got in contact with him, and they did that project. And there's only one feature on that album, and it's me. So I was very grateful about that, and I got to hang out with him, got to shoot videos. I directed and shot the director of photography, and shot the heart attack video for that album. And that was an honor, and just being able to pick his brain about stuff and bond with him in the studio and bug out, and I had him over for dinner. It was it was cool, man.
Definitely. I've conversed with Necro before over the email. I've never met him, but like he seems like incredible artist. Like I know his catalog of music. Obviously, songs like "I Need Drugs." What was it like meeting Necro and like being able to like work with him?
Oh yeah, I mean, so um, hang on one second. I'm getting texts and shit, and people trying to call me, but yeah, I guess it's trying to interrupt. Okay, so yeah, I met Necro in like 1997, and basically being on the underground scene, listening to like the underground radio, Stretch and Bobbito, WKCR, that legendary radio show in New York, the Stretch Armstrong show, and I was listening to the Martin Moore and Mayhem with DJ Riz and DJ Eclipse, and he was a guest up there. And I heard him up there, and he went up there. Usually rappers rap on other people's beats. They'll play like an instrumental, and they'll get up there and rap and freestyle and do whatever. And he went up there with his own beats and rapped over his own beats, and just like blew up the spot and was rapping really hardcore, rugged, evil. That like the early form of death rap then. And the only other person that I knew that was doing that, besides like the Gravediggers, was me. So him being from New York and like accessible, that made me want to like go to one of the shows and meet him and holler at him. Especially because I had no production at the time. Nobody was really. Can we curse on here? I don't know if
Yeah, of course.
I don't have to watch. I don't have to watch
Yeah.
English language, right?
I'm
All right, yeah. So I was like, nobody.
Yeah, love freedom of speech.
Okay, yeah, for sure. I mean, that's I exist because of that. I don't. That's another thing we could talk about. I don't water down my shit for anybody. But yeah, so nobody was really fucking with me at the time. I didn't have a producer. I didn't have anybody looking to sign me. I had like some little ventures fall through without getting signed to stuff. There was like a ghost writer for Coach Chillin Records that supposedly got me a meeting, and that shit fell through. And like there was really nothing going on. So like he was doing a show with Cage, another underground artist at the time, and Cage, he had put out his first vinyl single, Agent Orange, and they had a show at New Eurekan Poets Cafe it was a showcase, a cage showcase, and Necro was promoting it on the radio show, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna pop up over there and go support, show love, and see if I could check him. And then after the show, he ended up independently, of course, selling. He was selling his first black and white VHS film that he shot, directed, and wrote himself, and he was selling it after the show and going up to the fans and hand to hand, just on some DIY independent shit. And of course, I supported. I bought the VHS from him, the movie, and I got to talking with him and told him I heard him on the radio show and loved the way he spit and his beats and this and that. And I also knew him from producing the first nonfiction record single. So I spit for him on the spot. I was like, yo, I rhyme this and that. I rap evil also, and so I spit on the spot. He was bugging out. I was kicking crazy shit. That isn't really said by a lot of people, especially back then. I was dropping shit like, saying shit like autobionic mechanical sluts, touch you in places seen by few faces, rape type torture, slaughter oasis. Like I was rapping bugged out shit back then, like very original. And he was wilding out. I was like, oh shit, that's crazy. And then we vibed. And then a couple of days later, I watched the movie and I wanted to give him feedback, and he had his beeper number for business on the back of the VHS. So I started beeping him and we started talking on the phone and shit. I was like, kind of, like a fan. I was harassing him on some beeper shit. Like, yo, when's the next single? When's the next this, that? When's the next show? And then we got to talking, and he was like, yo, it came up that I was an amateur boxer, right? So, and he was going to the boxing gym at the time, and he didn't have a car, and I had a car. He's like, yo, you want to meet up, drive to the gym, we'll work out together? I was like, yeah, no doubt. I got you. Let's go. So picked him up. We went to the Starrett City boxing gym, worked out for like, a while, sparring, all sorts of stuff, hitting the bag together. And then we just found out that we had a lot of shit in common, including the G Rap shit, our upbringing on hip hop, our influences, big love of like horror movies in general, and we just became friends, and that was it from there. And then eventually, he started trying to put out singles of mine on his beats, and oddly enough, people still weren't fucking with it. They weren't like, they were kind of turning it down and stuff. And then eventually he was like, you know what, the industry's not really gonna fuck with us because being like the way we rap and being who we are. So he started working hard to put out his own label. He's like, and I was helping him with it, driving him to places, for deals, trying to get shit done, distro deals and whatever else. And he eventually did. We put out PLR, Psychological Records, and then he dropped a couple of Necro albums, I Need Drugs and Gory Days, and then did a group album, like a compilation album called Brutality Volume 1. I was on that. I had a big single on that called Street Veteran. So ended up being one of my biggest songs. And I started, obtaining fans through this and going up to radio shows. He was real good with me, man. Every time he went up to a radio show, he brought me with him, and like he would do his thing, and then like, yo, Hyde, kick a verse, and I started accumulating fans like that. And then when we were doing shows, just underground New York shows, bar shows, 200 cap type places, I would go on stage with him and we would rock, and eventually we started really building up a buzz in New York, and then eventually put out my solo album in 2004. So, which he produced and funded. So, I didn't have the money to fund and produce my record. So, and distribute my record. So he did all of that. And, basically we did a handshake deal and we split the album 50-50, and the rest is history, man. Like, Bound of the Naked Dead's a pretty hefty underground classic now. My first album,
Right. What's it feel to have like, a work that's considered a classic album?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty crazy because I'm very down to earth. I don't like, think of myself like this kind of hip hop legend or anything like that. But the fans, they really appreciate it, and it constantly gets quoted and shared on social media. They're always tagging me and stuff, and my classic songs kind of stream better, if the same or if not better than like a lot of my new stuff. So it's just it's one of these things where I'm very grateful for that when you have like like classics that are digital and streaming, that you always have income coming in because that, or and buzz going because they're always streaming those songs. They're kind of on these kids classic these classic playlists. So even if you don't really have radio play, that's your radio. These kids are making, or these fans are making their own playlists to make their own radio stations, really, because they don't want to listen to the garbage that's on the radio. So they're like, oh, let me take a Necro track or Ill Bill track, nonfiction or Vinny Paz or Mr. Hyde, and throw them on a playlist, all my favorite artists, and then they got their music for the day. Or when they're driving, they're bumping their music. It's like having your own radio station. I'm really grateful for the way that digital turned out like that, because a lot of these artists that were maybe on majors back then were lazy. They had everything spoon fed and given to them. The label would do the promotion. They'd cut them album advances, and they'd squander it or whatever. Put out an album that they'd have promotion and they'd be known. But now, when all the majors are done and it's all digital and independent now that are thriving, they don't know how to do it, or the record label owns all their masters. So we've seen it with De La Soul. One of the craziest things that Ill Bill had told me was that Nas doesn't own Illmatic, and to me that's fucking crazy. So one of the cool things is those classic records that we're speaking of that are streaming, I own all the masters. I own everything, and that's a blessing. And I also know how to run an independent machine. Thanks greatly in part to Necro too. Being with him on the startup of his own label, that was very successful.
Right, because you hear like all these stories though about like the artists who signed to like major labels, but they didn't really see like a share of that money. Then they don't own their masters. I think of like Diddy just recently gave like a lot of artists back their masters.
Right. Some people are cool and they do that, but labels like Tommy Boy, they ain't trying to do that. Like a lot of labels ain't trying. That's too much money, especially with big hits. You got a hit like Jump Around and you own it. You're not giving that back to anybody.
Most definitely.
You got to go to court.
I've been seeing I think like Taylor Swift has been like a really huge proponent because she doesn't own the masters to like her early work, and I think like she started like re-recording her songs. Like
yeah,
like artists re-recording like their material.
I've seen that a lot. Yeah, I mean that's a good idea. I think Das Effects did that. There's some artists that definitely did that. Brand Nubian, the Brand Nubian had to re-record a version of Punk Jump Up to Get Beat Down to collect on it, because they weren't collecting on it. They weren't getting that back from their label. So it's just one of those things that, especially hip hop artists, especially '90s era, because there's a difference between a Taylor Swift fucking hit and a '90s golden era artist hit, like a Smith and Wesson puts out an album and it's considered classic to me and us, but it's not a Taylor Swift hit. It's not Taylor Swift level. But having those masters really helped, and it really benefits the artist to re-record some of those hits, I would say, if they can't get their masters back. But yeah, and then now owning all my own shit, and over my career, graciously enough, I was able to own all the music too, the beats from that because I don't make my own beats, so all the production I own, and all the over the years, it's one of those things that it helps. I throw out my album, I put out an instrumental album to it, own it all, and if I get lucky and like Netflix picks up a song for a series, whatever, or a movie wants to pick it up, I own it. They got to cut that deal with me, not a syncing company. So
And who are some of the people that you studied in the music industry, to get the importance of like owning your masters? I know you said Necro, obviously being like an influence in like the way you see like business in the music industry, but like who are some of the other people that you looked up to?
It was a trickle down effect, maybe not so much musically, but Master P, for us, he's the king. He's the king of that. He was in a similar situation where the fucking radio stations were not trying to commercially play his stuff. It was too street, too, you know, kind of gutter, you know, for them, and too wild. And then he kind of pushed his way in and made his own, you know, the No Limit records, and did his own thing, and that was a huge influence to Necro, and through trickle down effect, he you know, it had an influence on me. So I'm gonna cite Master P as that dude, you know.
Man, you just dropped the album on Halloween.
I did. I actually I pre you know, that's premeditated. I try to always do a Halloween drop if I can. Sometimes it doesn't always work out, you know, just whatever. But this one, it worked out perfectly. I even intertwined in the artwork orange and black coloring, you know, like colors into the artwork, just to make it like a whole Halloween feel and Halloween drop. And it's going well, you know, and the fans actually appreciate it too. Like, oh, we got some new Mr. Hyde on Halloween. It's like it gives them that overall feeling that you know of it. It takes you. It's like Mr. Hyde season. Halloween is Mr. Hyde season. So yeah, I always kind of have that in the back of my head, like for a Halloween drop, whether it's a single or an album.
Man, I was watching an interview with you, and you were talking about when you were growing up, your mom used to actually like smash like your cassette tapes. And I thought, like, you
Yeah,
know, that
yeah,
must have been
that's
pretty
true.
traumatic.
My mother was you know, very strict on some, like, you know, no R-rated movies, no hip hop, no that. So you know, when you tell a kid that, the first thing they're gonna do is when they go over their friend's house is watch the most foul fucking movies, listen to Two Live Crew as much as you can, you know what I mean? And it's just that type of thing. So you tell a kid no, it's like yeah, I'm gonna get it. There must be a reason why it's so coveted, and you know, like, and so you know, where the parents are so crazy about it, they don't want their kids to listen to it. It's like a taboo thing, you know. And so yeah, we go to friend's house, and or wherever. My father would take me on the weekends, and my father is old school Italian dude who wanted to play cards on the weekend, so he would pick me up, take me to the video store, let me rent whatever the fuck I wanted. Like, rent 6 movies, so I'd be renting like horror movies, the most foul horror movies, and then and wrestling tapes, like, and shit like that. So I'd be watching WrestleMania, jumping off the fucking couch, and then watching Texas Chainsaw Massacre, also probably jumping off the couch. And you know, and while my father played cards all day, so it'd be like 6 hours of shit that was probably you know, making me immune to violence, you know, and you know, so that type of shit. So yeah, I mean, that's how I came up. And my mother, she would, I my boy was a DJ, and he got really into um underground hip hop at the time, late 80s, early 90s, and he would make mixtapes with his, you know, he had Technique 1200s, and we go to the record stores in New York. We go to Fat Beats and we go to Numbers, two legendary record stores, and we go record shopping and get all the newest shit, and we take the all the vinyl that he had, and we'd make mixtapes, blends and mixtapes. And I would go home with the mixtapes and blends after I, you know, hung out the whole weekend with him. And my mother would find the tape, you know, like she'd put on the headphones and press play randomly, and it might be, you know, Punk Jump Up to Get Beat Down, or it might be fucking like in that interview I was saying, Slick Rick, with your wrinkled pussy, I can't be your lover, that line from Lottie Dottie, and she would, you know, break it, throw it away, you know, take my Walkman away, you know, that type of shit. And then we'd battle. Then I would be a spiteful kid, so I would go bust up her Barry White CDs, you know, whatever the fuck. Well, you know, Barry White tapes, you know, or Sheena Easton or some shit. Oh yeah, yeah, you taking away my Slick Rick? Well, Sheena Easton's out the fucking window too. You know, so. But yeah, you know, it was that type of childhood. But I have to give props to my mom for putting me onto music, because she always had vinyl and always had the Sony, fucking huge Sony headphones, and would let me listen to the whole 45s and vinyl. So I was listening to shit at 8 years old, 7 years old. I'm listening to the OJs, fucking Marvin Gaye, disco shit too, Donna Summer, whatever. You know, just ill shit. The Beatles. She had all the Beatles shit. You know, Rolling Stone shit. So I was already influenced by great music at a young age, and all the 80s pop shit too. So she had Cyndi Lauper and Madonna too, you know, like all that shit. So like it was just a blend of everything.
Man, this is the 50th year of hip hop. What do you feel about the state of the culture of hip hop?
No, I mean, honestly, I don't even stay tuned or involved or in the loop of hip hop now. Like, so I'm so in my own world where and so cultured from the golden era and the dope shit that I don't even pay this new shit any mind, man. You know, and especially I also have the sour grapes thing too, because if you're gonna say that my shit's too explicit, like recently I tried to do an ad on Spotify for one of my singles, and the Spotify wouldn't even take my fucking money. They came back to me and said my shit supports grandiose violence and is too explicit in the artwork and the music that they won't even do it. Let me run an ad on my single. So but then a song like, you know, WAP from fucking Nicki Minaj, not Nicki, what's her name?
Cardi
Fucking
B.
Cardi B. Cardi B can be all over the radio and all over everywhere and be like a borderline soft porn fucking video. And that's gonna be what's pushed to the youth. You know what I mean? So that's definitely more detrimental than my shit. My shit is kind of like watching a Clive Barker movie or watching a Freddy Krueger movie, and you're like, you know, like a Wes Craven movie, and you're like, oh, this shit is, you know, it's dope, it's imaginative, it's you know, creative, and your mom can tell you it's not real, but you know, but Cardi B with her fucking stinky wet pussies running around, you know, promoting it and being a former stripper and that lifestyle, and the girls are looking up to her. I have a daughter. I'd rather have her listen to my shit. You know, and be able to have the talk with her.
What do you think
But
about like, you know, being a father, like, you know, thought culture, especially like, you know, with a lot of the female musicians, like it seems like, you know, that they push sexuality, you know, you think about Sexy Red, Glorilla, you know, Doja Cat, Lotto, all of these people, like, you know, who push sexuality in their music, and it's very little substance sometimes.
yeah, I mean, it's like it's almost like that's what you need to get attention. That's what you got to do to get attention. Whether it's on Instagram, all these girls like aspiring to be Instagram models or having OnlyFans, and I mean, that's a fucked up. Instead of being like, yo, go to college, go to, you know, like even be independent. It's the wrong way to be independent. Like it's like from back in the day, like be your own hooker or something like that. Be your own digital hooker. That is not the way it's supposed to be. You know, like you know the way we're supposed to be pushing DIY and fucking and being an entrepreneur or things like that. You know, so that's fucked up.
Oh,
But
would you date an OnlyFans girl? You know, that's a lot of like, you know,
I've never owned an OnlyFans. Well, I'm the type of dude, you know, just in general in my life. I've always had gift of gab and game, and I don't have to pay for pussy. So it's like I'm not gonna, you know, I'm not paying for OnlyFans. I'm not having a subscription to OnlyFans. It's just for me, it's the same like loser dude that's in the strip club all day buying steak dinners and spending his fucking day and night at the strip club. You know, like I said, for me, I'm not that type of dude. So I don't really support that, especially in my, you know, my with the way I was raised and my lifestyle. You know, my money can go towards better things, and I don't need to do that. You know, and if I was really fucking horny, I'm gonna watch free porn. I'm not gonna pay for an OnlyFans. So but yeah, no, I wouldn't date an OnlyFans girl based off OnlyFans. Now, maybe date a girl and then you find out that she's an OnlyFans girl, and then you got to have that conversation or see if she's worth it enough. But yeah, you know, only it's funny. Like I'm OnlyFansing to put myself through school, or you know, it's like the same thing as the stripper myth. You know, big shout out to Chris Rock and that monologue he did about the stripper myth. But yeah, so yeah, I'm not, you know, I'm not into all that shit. I feel like it's a negative. It's negative for the youth and negative for our daughters. I don't know if you have you know kids or a daughter.
I have two daughters.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm sure you feel the same way. You know,
yeah.
you know, there's as men, of course, we're visually stimulated by you know by sex and by sexy stuff, and there's nothing wrong with being sexy, but as far as you know, that being the only way, you know, a woman is going to get a man or a woman is going to get attention, whether it's social media or in school or you know whatever, like that ain't cool, and that's the way it's being pushed. You know, like every Cardi B video has to have, you know, that promiscuous sexuality connotation. you know. And I'm sure people are gonna be like, yeah, well, Hyde, every fucking song that you have is violent. All right, you know, touche, whatever. But you know, my shit could be construed as art and imaginative, as dope as a Mr. Hyde character, you know. So it's not like I'm out there murdering everybody, you know. So, but Cardi B was out there stripping and you know, telling people to, you know, rob dudes and fucking and hustle dudes, and it's just, you know, it's not a that was her real mind state, you know. So it's you know, I'm not down with that shit. And then to have that infiltrate hip hop, where, you know, there's no art or fucking creativity in that. It's just shaking your ass and bringing attention to your ass. You know, it's whack to me.
Yeah, and like one of the things I think like is really odd is like Cardi B's actually on record of like, you know, where she like hustled dudes out of money and then like, you know,
Right.
got them to have sex with transsexuals and stuff because they were, you know, which isn't cool. Like, you know, but
All that shit is negative. All that shit is foul, and I don't want my daughter ever knowing about it. Like, it's real degenerate shit. It's like there's a different level that, you know, like, you're not gonna tell Quentin Tarantino he's a degenerate because he makes violent movies. So, but Cardi B to me is a degenerate. I mean, you know, getting off that, there's a ton of other ones like you mentioned, and it's becoming that way. And even the males in hip hop, they're co-signing it by making every song about, you know, trying to obtain that shit. You know, like or you know, so I don't know. It's just I think hip hop went from, you know, skills, lyricism, turntablism, breakdancing, and all that dope shit, where it actually took talent. And now artists like that who stay true to it will have 1/10 of the followers that a fucking just some girl shaking her ass on Instagram has. It's like they're more famous for not having talent and just, you know, an artist forever. You know, your fucking tits are gonna sag to the floor in 10 years. You know.
I mean, like, yeah, I think it's really interesting, like, you know, the kind of culture that we live in. And it does seem like it glorifies like thought culture. I feel like, you know, like you take like Christian Rock and Blueface, for example. I don't know if you know who they are, but like
I mean, that's the great thing. I don't. The people you're mentioning, I mean, I know who Doja Cat is. I know who, you know, like I know some of them, Cardi B, of course, but the ones you're mentioning, I don't know, and it's probably a good thing.
uh have of course, you know, Tupac Shakur, you know, like his murderer was recently caught, like
Yeah,
PPP,
right.
who like allegedly participated in like, you know, the murder of Tupac Shakur. Do you have any feelings about it? Like, you know, do you feel that's a good thing for hip hop?
Yeah, of course. It gives closure to something that was, you know, it's an outrage. Like how is someone like that killed in on you know, on the Vegas Strip, you know, like, and it's covered up and not solved for all these years. It just it puts you know, it makes you think that that type of person, black icon, black hip hop icon, is not important enough to solve his fucking murder. You know what I mean? Like that's the vibe I got. And I'm, you know, me being a white Italian of Italian descent, that's the vibe I got. So imagine the vibe that the black community and the hip hop community in general got from that. I just felt like that should have been solved so much so much earlier, or like right on the spot. I feel like people turned a blind eye, and that was just a real fucking travesty of justice back then. Um, and it happens a lot. I mean, it happens every day in the hood, or whatever. People are like, you know, another dead fucking drug dealer. Who gives a fuck? Like, you know, whoever it was, that person might have had a mother, you know, a family. You know, it definitely did. Not might have, but you know, like it's not important to solve that murder. So, yeah, I just and now you're talking about someone who's a fucking icon, and actually good for hip hop, and good for, you know, he was in a lot of ways. It was I thought Tupac was misunderstood. I feel like in a lot of ways, there was nothing wrong with him rapping like his dopest shit to me is the dope gangster shit and the song Troublesome and like just the hit 'em up track. Those are the tracks that are most live and most hype for me that I love. But then he was also very conscious and intelligent, and that I respected that as well. I felt like he was misunderstood in a lot of ways. So it was that was a real fucking tragedy in hip hop.
You hear a lot about cultural appropriation. You mentioned being Italian, and
Mhm.
uh, being black. I can't help but notice that there seems to be a lot of black people that emulate Italian culture.
Right,
Italy. Like more black people visit Italy than they do Africa. What are your
right,
thoughts about that?
right. Well, I see more black people at the Olive Garden than Italians. No, but that was a little side joke. But yeah, I agree with that. And me and Necro talk about it all the time. Where it's kind of really reversed. It's fucked up for us because we get told that we're culture vultures or something like that, right? And then you got like a dude like Wu Tang or Raekwon making his whole album, Gangsta Gambino shit and flipping gangsters' names to be Wu Tang members' names, and that type of thing. So it's and how many beats are taken from Italian mobster records like the Godfather soundtrack, and whether it was Mobb Deep or like all these classic records. And I feel like it gets in hip hop, the Italians and the gangster shit gets emulated, but then when we're doing boom bap shit or hip hop shit, we're called culture vultures. I find it hilarious. It's a double standard, and there's always been a double standard. And I feel like hip hop doesn't really have a color. It's a hip hop is a culture. So if you're down with the culture, you're down with it. But that's coming from me. Other people could have that feeling where black people like to say hip hop is ours. That shit is ours, and you're just a guest in hip hop. Whatever.
Do you think there
I,
is a such thing as a culture vulture? Is that like a real term? Is there somebody in the culture you would call out like that's being a culture vulture?
I think that if you're using hip hop just to if you're exploiting it, or if you're using it as a gimmick, or just to try to if it's not in your soul, like if it's not in your upbringing and DNA, you're kind of like so I would say it's sort of like being in metal. They had a term called being a poser. Being a poser. So if you got people walking around with Tupac shirts that never heard a fucking Tupac song, right? So that could be a culture vulture if you wanted to, like in my. And then they have the same thing in metal. There's these girls where it's trendy to wear a Metallica shirt. They're wearing a Metallica Kill 'Em All shirt, and they couldn't tell you one song on Metallica Kill 'Em All. So this is a poser. It's the same type of thing. So if you want to go hip hop knowledge with me, or with a dude like Necro or Ill Bill, most likely you're going to lose. You're going to lose that conversation or that debate. So because we're true hip hop purists up on it. We would like anybody else. Like if your father raised you on sports and you're doing sports trivia with your dad and you know everything about Don Mattingly and his baseball cards and whatever, right? And now I was raised the same way with hip hop and sports. I'm big on sports too. But like if we get into a conversation where you want to do hip hop trivia, who produced what record and who did this, and what year did this album come out? We could do it. And so I don't think with any kind of a straight face or clear conscience, someone could call me a culture vulture of hip hop. So I don't take offense to it. If it doesn't apply to me, if I feel like deep down it doesn't apply to me, I don't take offense to it. Just like if you're not, you're going to call someone a racial slur, that it's all about you to be offended. If it doesn't apply to you, it doesn't apply to you.
Uh, man, what's next for you, Mr. Hyde?
Well, sending out orders. I'm DYI, so I have orders sitting here for the new album. I got to sign autographs on the CDs, physical copies. Send out the packages. I do it all DIY. I print out the labels here in my office myself. So I continue promoting the record. I got a couple of paid commission features that I got to do, and then get right back to working on the next project. And just recently, um, we were talking about doing something like maybe a group record with me, Ill Bill, and Necro. We have the classic one, Circle of Tyrants. We might work on something, something new with that. So I'm excited about that. Uh, Hopefully get touring again. I was heavily touring from 2005 to 2019, and then that COVID shit hit, and I actually haven't done a show since COVID. Then again, my daughter was born in 2019, so I already had it in my head that I wasn't going to tour and spend some time with my daughter, while she was an infant, and then I just never, got the momentum to go back on tour. But hopefully this year or into next year we'll get some offers and get back on the road, because that was big. It's so funny because touring at one point was like 60% of my income. And then when digital hit and then COVID hit, where now digital is like 65% of my income. And it's crazy how shit works out.
Definitely, man. Are you looking forward to getting back on the road and tour? Because like, now that you have a daughter and stuff, is that different, change the dynamics of it?
Yeah, I just wouldn't go on a long tour. Like we used to do 35 date tours, 28 date tours, be out, a month and a half on the road or a month straight. So now it would just be like a week run, do like a week stretch, week and a half, come back. 50, the most I'll do is maybe 2 weeks, like 14 shows or something. But yeah, that's the only dynamic that might change. And then obviously having to pay babysitters, so some of the tour money is gonna have to go towards babysitters. But yeah, I'm definitely open to it, and if the offer's right, promoters holler at me, book me, I'm ready. I got a brand new album out. Let's do it.
Definitely. Where can people get in contact with you on social media? Check out your music.
Yeah, everything is, and I urge upcoming independent artists to do this. One of the things that I had trouble with my whole career is the Mr. Hyde name and character and owning that brand. So because there's the book and because there's like fucking 19 Mr. Hydes as far as musically out there, that I had to basically consolidate the URL. So like it's the handle. So I'm at Mr. Hyde PLR everywhere. So whether it's Instagram, TikToks, Snapchat, whatever the fuck, Facebook, it's all at Mr. Hyde PLR. And the website, if you want to buy merch, sign merch, the new album, hard copy, you can even message me through the website. It's MrHydePLR.com. So at Mr. Hyde PLR and MrHydePLR.com is the website. And the Spotify is just Mr. Hyde. I'm the biggest Mr. Hyde on Spotify. So if you search it, it should come up. Gratefully enough, with all these Mr. Hydes that are out there, that they're using that name, I'm the biggest. I'm the one that comes up first. So that, I'm thankful for that.
Why did you choose the name Mr. Hyde?
Oh, well, okay. So back in the day, my first it's an interesting story that maybe that I never did in an interview. I've done where I got the name from, but I never said what my first hip hop name was. I had this group called Catch 22 with my boy X Lib. He was also the guy who was the DJ that I was referring to earlier. When we were going to Fat Beats and making mixtapes and records and stuff, and then we used to do house parties too. But yeah, so I was in this group called Catch 22, and we were trying to come up with names. And when I was a kid, I was such like a little terror, and bust things up and fucking always make a mess somehow, that my family members would call me Christopher. My real name is Christopher, right? So they